Congress MP Shashi Tharoor was cleared by a Delhi court today of charges in the case involving the death of his wife Sunanda Pushkar. Pushkar was found dead in a suite of a luxury hotel in Delhi on the night of the 17th of January 2014. Mr Tharoor was charged with abetment to suicide and cruelty by the Delhi police. After the pronouncement of the order, Mr Tharoor said, "Most grateful, Your Honour. It's been 7.5 years of absolute torture. I really appreciate it." Unquote. I would like to cut across live now to our guests, and the question that we are asking is that whether this was a case of a media trial, a reputation ruining media trial, and is there time for action in this case? Mr Kothari, thank you very much. Mr Swapnil Kothari is a senior lawyer in the Bombay High Court and the Supreme Court. Mr Kothari, we have had this discussion in the context of Rhea Chakraborty. We have had this discussion in the context of the Sunanda Pushkar death case also. Now there is a pronouncement from the court. Do you think that now this matter is settled, that this was definitely a case of some VVIP anchormen sitting in the studio and deciding the fate of people and ruining their reputation?
Sanket, what happens is that when you are a top celebrity, whether you're a minister, you're a film star, or anything of that sort, you know, all these things go along with the bandwagon. Even if you do a small charity, it'll make big news, whereas people like you and me who may make bigger charities will never come into that limelight. We will nenever be appreciated for that. So ऐसे भी होती है, ऐसी भी चीजें होती है. So what happens is that when you are embroiled in a case and when your name is embroiled in a case, what happens is that today investigative journalism as back as early, and I will first talk about the law part. The law is 19(1)(a) freedom of speech and expression, and fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression includes freedom of press. You as a part of the media today is a fourth estate, the fourth pillar of democracy as we call it. Inscribed in that right to freedom of speech is the right to know. As early as in 1974, the Supreme Court in the state of UP versus Raj Narayan pronounced that as a fundamental right. Now, if you don't have the right to say whatever you want to, we'll get to the point as how you say it is a different issue. Whether you have a right to say or whether you have a right to investigate. What was the Watergate scandal? Two young reporters went about exploring a simple burglary case which was made out. This is a very simple burglary case, and then that resulted in 2 years of convoluted investigations resulting in a presidential resignation of Richard Nixon. What we are trying to say is that if you start off something which may be trumped as a suicide or some accidental death of sorts, and if you have an investigative journalism or investigative police, then that should not be stopped by any manner. Now, as far as how you go about it, there is a certain words that you may or may not say is a separate issue. As you will see in Shilpa Kundra's case just now, very recently, Justice Gautam Patel of the Bombay High Court was balancing the right to privacy, and he said, pull down only those things that infringe on her right to privacy. Other than that, I am not going to gag the media. So what is the meaning of that? He is going by the fundamental right of yours and mine to know, yours to speak and mine to know. Now, as far as considering your question whether this case is settled, now if the prosecution wishes to appeal, because many times you see that the lower courts, in fact the trial court sometimes acquits. ये तो यहाँ पे तो trial ही नहीं हुआ है. यहाँ पे तो it's just a very initial decision that there's not enough evidence, and we all know. I'm not talking about this case. I'm now talking generically that we all know about the politician and the police nexus, etc. So we in this, suppose a trial court would have, Mr Tharoor would have undergone a trial, and if the trial court acquits him,
Mr Kothari,
there is a sessions court.
Mr Kothari, you see, I would have believed had this been the case of a politician from the ruling dispensation. Here is a man who is an MP from an opposition party, right? Who was probing this case? The Delhi police, right?
Right.
Who runs the Delhi police? It's the Home Ministry. Who is the Home Minister? We all know.
Right.
There was every possibility of there being a fair or unfair trial in this particular case. But for you to assume that Mr. Tharoor may have influenced the police at this moment, do you think this will be slightly far-fetched?
No, I'm not saying at all that he is influenced. I'm simply saying that the police has not adduced sufficient evidence to a court of law on the basis of which the court of law has given its verdict.
No,
now,
one is that the police did not attach enough evidence.
Or
My
there
question
wasn't
is,
enough.
Mr. Satish Manishinde is also with us, senior lawyer. Mr. Swapnil Kothari, my question is, what if there was no sufficient evidence?
correct, that's
See,
what I said. There
we
wasn't
can assume that they did not produce.
either. True.
But that could also mean that there was no evidence. Mr.
True.
Satish Manishinde, I want to come to you now to the main point that we are raising right here. And the point is, in the case of Rhea Chakraborty also, you and I have had this discussion on a number of occasions. Mr. Kothari was also with us. How easy it has become to sully reputations of people. I mean, in this case, it went on for 7.5 years. A court has made its pronouncement very, very clearly, discharged Mr. Tharoor of all the charges. Do you think that this is once again a case where we must relook at how much can you say about an individual? I can understand the media must be allowed to report, but how much do you say and how do you say?
See, courts time and again have come down heavily upon these electronic media and TV channels, and particularly those who come regularly on the TV. And I don't know how they find so much time to come on the TV regularly, particularly lawyers. They come and keep defaming people, and without any evidence, they keep making false charges and trying to impose their own ideas on the public and the electronic media. So Supreme Court has said, particularly those
Mr. Kothari was talking about freedom of speech of the media.
Freedom of speech also has its own restrictions. And Mr. Kothari is a very senior lawyer, and I think he knows the law, but I don't know whether he's practicing it. So I only hope that someday some senior lawyers like Mr. Kothari, who regularly come on the TV and keep making allegations and coming to their own conclusions, they hardly know the facts, they hardly know the investigation, they hardly know the incident the way it has happened. They try and picturize it as if they were participating in the incident. So this must stop. Apart from all this, the courts have time and again reminded you that, my dear friends, you have your own restrictions imposed under Article 19. Freedom of speech doesn't mean that you go and talk nonsense on the electronic media, and please curtail yourselves, and particularly when a matter is under investigation. I know that Tharoor's case, for whatever reasons, may be his own doing, because he's such a flashy politician and speaks so many, in so many terms of various, or he has an opinion on everything in the world. So he probably brought this downfall of his own by going so much into the media, and he used to go there again and again and leading a flashy life. So people like I don't want to name them, they can't see that one man is hogging so much of limelight. So these people come down heavily on such people, and I think Supreme Court has always said that when a case is under investigation, at least till the charge sheet is filed, don't try and impose your own ideas, don't try and impose your own Sherlock Holmes, investigations that these people conduct. And Mr. Kothari, he came several times on the TV when I was on.
No, my point is, if someone in the media wants to be Sherlock Holmes, then it's got to be a Sherlock Holmes properly.
One thing, today, Supreme Court, having transferred this case to the CBI, it's almost one complete year. We know the fate of the case.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Manishinde, as well as Mr. Swapnil Kothari. Let's hope this brings about some amount of change and order in the manner in which we report. If you want to be Sherlock Holmes properly. Don't be a sham of a Sherlock Holmes. Thank you very much for joining us.